Hey guys, it's Greg Jones for Engine Builder, and today we're in South Haven, Mississippi, and I'm joined by Derrick Bailey of BB&T Racing. And this right here is a 540 cubic inch big block Chevy that's going to be ProCharged, and it's our Engine of the Week.
Engine Builder's Engine of the Week is sponsored by Pen Grade 1, L-Ring DOS Original, and NPW.
Derrick, thanks so much for giving us a little bit of time today.
No
show us around the shop here and showcase what you have here getting built right now in this big block Chevy. And we just wanted to know a little bit more about you and the shop to start with, and then we of course wanted to dive into some of these details of the big block Chevy you're putting together.
All right. Well, me and my brother started drag racing about 30 years ago on the street, and just got to working on cars, and cars turned into working on other people's cars and turned into selling parts, and then that turned into getting into engine sides, and we didn't know nothing about any of it when we started. We just kind of the weekend warrior, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and,
sure.
End of the day, we created a pretty good mail order business and selling parts over the years, and have turned it into a retail store and turned it into a full-blown machine shop.
Yeah, and Derrick, I understand you guys have been doing it for a couple of decades now. You know, when did you officially start?
Yeah, officially we opened a business in May of '94.
Okay.
Here in town in South Haven. Been here our whole life.
Yeah.
Grew up here and started a business here.
Yeah, and I understand this particular location, you guys came in here in 2006?
2006,
okay.
Yes sir. So we've been in this about 17 years.
Awesome, awesome. Well, yeah, you showed us around the shop, and we'll of course show the viewers a little bit of what you guys got going on here. But
yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about some of the machinery that you guys have, and then of course some of the types of engines that you get coming through the shop.
So over the years, we started with your basic portable boring bars and stuff like that. And we had some seat sun and stuff, and so now we've upgraded most of that to our block work gets done on a Rottler F79 4th axis CNC machine. So we do just about all the block work on it, surface cylinder heads on it. Also got a Rottler 69 ATC, and we port cylinder heads in that deal, and mainly for our customers that we build engines for. We don't really do anything outside of that.
Yeah.
We just want to take care of the people that take care of us.
Absolutely. And then you guys also had a dyno back there, which same type of deal you guys are running.
It's an engine dyno. I'll pretty much just do engines that we build, and obviously look for horsepower and look for things that make power and try to give our customer a better piece.
Yeah.
End of the day, it's a really good tool, and it's a lot of work in it, but we have fun doing it because it's the fruits of your labor. After you build one, you get to go blast it and see what it does.
That's right. You want to hear it fire up.
Right.
Very good. And then tell us a little bit about some of the engines that you get coming through. I understand it's a lot of Chevy stuff, but you dabble.
Yeah, we're mainly a domestic shop. We do a lot of Chevrolet, a lot of Ford, a lot of LS stuff. We do a whole lot of block work. We do get a lot of customers that like to build their own stuff, kind of like where we started in the garage. And I'm cool with that because they need machine work done, and if they want to build it, I'm good. You know what I mean? And I'll try to help them guys out and give them still the creations that we find on the dyno for the customers that actually I build motors for.
Yeah.
So we're not opposed to giving our secrets, I guess you want to say.
Yeah.
I always say you could give a guy a car that runs 4 O's and he couldn't make it go 5 O's and you ain't touched it. So, they got to have the desire to make it happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Derrick, we're standing in front of this 540 big block Chevy that you told us is going to be ProCharged.
Correct.
You want to tell us a little bit of background about how this build came to the shop? Is it a repeat customer or a new
customer?
This
build come to a shop, a guy that I have never seen. He walks in the shop and he starts buying a few parts for a 69 Camaro he's stripping, and he bought it as a bracket car. He drag raced when he was a kid and had kids and got out in life, and now his kids are gone and he's got money and he's ready to go back drag racing.
Yeah.
So he bought him a 69, a bracket car, and he went and played with it, and it went low 5s, and end of the day he decided that he wanted to go fast. So he pulled it out and started stripping it down and wanted to put an F3 ProCharger on one, right? So long story short, he got it all stripped down and realized there was a bunch of work to build a car from the ground up, and turned around and we had actually acquired a F-body that had a 540 with a ProCharger on it. And he comes in and says, "Is that car for sale?" And we go, "Anything's for sale." So he comes back 30 minutes later with a wad of cash and he buys him a car.
Yeah.
So long story short is, he goes drag racing, and I'll build him another one for the 69, and he winds up pulling this is the particular motor that actually come out of that car.
Okay.
And I wound up building him another one. And for the 69, he takes a 69 motor and put it in that car, and we raced it all last year, and he did real well with it.
Yeah.
Won quite a few no prep stuff around the country, and
awesome.
And he's got the bug, and so I'm freshening this one up for him, and got another brand new one and right behind him being built. So for he's gonna try to put this one back in the 69 and finish that car,
okay.
and he's gonna keep the new one I'm building for a spare. So
yeah. So it turned into a pretty lucrative customer.
It has turned into a real good customer.
Yeah.
And actually turned out a pretty good friend too. You know.
Yeah.
He likes to race like us, and he's ready to go. So
that's great. So Derrick, if you would, walk us through the build a little bit. You know, you got the block sitting right here. You know, what kind of machine work went into this, and then we got some components here around us. You know, walk us through it.
Yeah, so basically we kind of take the blocks when we get them from Brodix. They're kind of what I call rough. Their bores are undersized, whether it's in the mains or the cylinder bores. First thing we do is we bring it in and we line hone it. We set bearing clearance. Of course, you can see the bearings are in it. So basically when it was in the machine, I actually check bearing clearances while it's in the machine, because I can set that bearing clearance while we're doing it. Once I get that done, then we flip it out and we take it back to the CNC, and we bore the cylinders, and that thing basically will bore 90 degrees true, so it's cam crank center lined. So back there we cut the stroke in it, we bore the cylinders. I actually skim the decks on them. They leave the sleeves a little high in them, so I try to skim the top of the sleeve to make sure they're true, because when they press them in, sometimes the sleeves don't always stay perfect, right? Ain't nothing in this world perfect, but you know, we just try to square them up a lot better and make them a lot more flatter. We cut hoops in them for head gasket cylinder purposes. Then we bring it out and we go take it and we put it in our Rottler HP6A cylinder home, which is a diamond abrasive deal, which has really changed the game a lot too. And we get it honed, and at the end of the day, we are ready to clean it and for the block side to start assembly. On the flip side of that, we get back into the crankshaft. So we got like a Cali's Magnum crankshaft over here. It's a 4 1/4 stroke. And we take them and we balance it to the rods and pistons. So obviously we got some diamond pistons and some GRP rods. And once we get all that balanced, and then we file fit rings, and we can check rod bearing clearances, and we can start assembling process wise. This particular cylinder head is actually a complete one from Brodix. It's already been ported and stuff. You know, as with anything, it's so far behind to get stuff, but we can't do it all, so we just had to buy what we can get too. Right? And on the outside of that, then we'll just start assembling it and build a long block, and go drop it in a car and hopefully go racing soon.
So, and Derrick, like you were saying before, you know, you guys got a lot of machines, and you know, you're certainly doing a lot of machine work. Is there anything that you'll send out, or is it 100% in-house in terms of machine work? Machine work wise is probably really getting cylinder heads ported, just because of the time factor that it takes to do. While I'm building motors and trying to keep stuff coming in, I got, you know, we've been in it for 30 years. I know guys all over the country, so you know, I got good relationships with most of the engine builders that you would think we wouldn't like, but we're actually friends. You know, it's not really competition; it's more of a friend thing, right? So I just assume to pay them and support them to help me do cylinder heads as well as anything else. So at that point, I know who to buy heads from for what applications to make power, and so we work closely with some of them guys just to help us keep some of our cylinder heads moving. Very good. So you talked about the rotating assembly, you talked about the Brodix head. How about some of the Valvetrain components that are going to be?
So Valvetrain stuff, actually, we use a company called Rev out of Florida, which them guys have been in the valve business a lot longer than they've been open, and come from another shop and kind of started their own thing. I like them, but it's for the simple fact I get great customer service with them as soon as I call, and I can order a custom valve, and steel valves they normally make for me in 2 to 5 days. Titanium stuff, I normally get it in 5. And here lately, you've been lucky if you got a titanium valve from anybody in 6 months. You know, I mean, just the COVID and the work thing and materials coming out of wherever they get them from, blanks have just been tough to get. So as far as that goes, valve springs, we use a lot of pack stuff. I try to use the higher end stuff. I do use some mainly springs on their higher end stuff. Outside of that, you know, the lower grade stuff, I try not to get involved with because it normally don't last and it winds up costing us the bottom end.
See a camshaft over there. Who are you using for?
This particular camshaft's a bullet camshaft. We use a lot of their stuff
here
in town with
down
us.
The street.
Yes, they are down the street from us. We use a lot of that.
Nice.
Belt drive stuff, I normally use Jessels. My dampeners, I like to use Innovators West. I like Innovators West because one of the first ones to start putting magnets in the front cover for the crank triggers.
Okay.
And I just like that because it ain't a bolt-on piece like it used to be, and just a lot cleaner look, and it makes things a lot nicer. And with the new Fueltech stuff, they're all doing this 12-1 magnet, and they obviously do that, which is an application that we're putting on here too.
Very good. Yeah, then I see the Moroso pan and some of the oil system stuff there. You got some ARP head studs.
Correct, it's ARP head studs, the Moroso old pan. Them pans right there for the big blocks are really nice. They fit real good. We've been using, in the oil pumps, I've been using the Melling billets. They fit that pan really nice, and we've had great oil pressure and very, I mean, most of our bearings after 400 or 500 runs will still look brand new. Yeah. And that's amazing.
That's
this
great.
Day and time.
Yeah.
A lot of that I attribute to the pin grade oil. We found it a long time ago, and the history of that oil, if you know about it, it kind of come back around when it disappeared years ago. Yeah. And once it started coming back around and I found it, I just had to go back to it. And what I like about it is, like I tell my customers, if it sticks on your hands, you got to go wash it off. How do you think your bearings feel? Yeah. You know, it's going to stay there. Absolutely. And once we put it on alcohol, we had other brands on alcohol, and it would just wash them things clean. And with the Brad pen, it doesn't mix near like it used to be, and it definitely.
Yeah, it has that clingability.
This has that clingability.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Very good. And so this is going to be an alcohol.
It's going to be an alcohol motor, yes, sir. Fuel injected.
And you mentioned the bearings. Who you guys use for bearings?
This is a Cleveite bearing, which is their coated version, which I believe Calico actually coats all of their factory bearings. Okay. And we really like the coating stuff. You know, in theory, it should pull down temperatures of the oil and stuff like that. And I do monitor oil temps and everything we do. And even the bearings, like I said, when you pull them out, the coating's still on them for the most part. We might get some crank flex when we start leaning on the motor, so you might see some of the mains start getting, you know, opposing wear in them. But when you're talking 200 and 300 runs out of a blown ProCharger motor, that's hard on everything in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's nice to have a bearing that's still alive when you take it apart.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Derrick, I think you mentioned the stroke of the crank, but can you go over the stroke of the crank, the length of the rods, you know,
some
of that
this is
type of stuff?
4 1/4 stroke.
Okay.
Crankshaft wise. Yep. This particular rod is a 6-700 long. We're still just using a big block Chevrolet rod pin and a big block Chevrolet wrist pin in it. Some guys have went to the Hemi stuff, which is a bigger pin. Yeah. We just haven't been breaking wrist pins. I do use a trend tool steel pin in most of my stuff, which are really thick wall, and we just haven't been bending them or breaking them. So, you know, in my mind, why upgrade? Why put a heavier piece in it if you don't have to? Yeah. And then the diamond pistons, it's got a little bit of dome in it. This particular motor will make about 10 to 1. There's some guys that actually like to run more compression in these motors, but the way I feel about it, another point of compression means you got to take some timing out of it, and, you know, depends on where you're trying to go with it. Yeah. And we don't, like I tell most of my customers, I like to see you go 200 passes and have fun. I don't see you blowing them up every weekend and rebuilding them. Yeah. You know, because that ain't no fun. Yeah. Yeah, not for them or you, right? No, no fun at all. It ain't no fun for me either, because it's a lot of work, and you know, I got other guys I got to take care of. I can't take care of you every week. You know?
Absolutely, absolutely. Derrick, how about the cam bore? What size cam?
This particular is a 55mm roller bearing. Okay. You know, we could put a 60 in it and get a bigger camshaft and stuff like that, but for the most part, these blocks are only capable for X amount of horsepower per se before you really start beating on them. Mm-hmm. 60mm stuff, I'd probably say for a billet block or something that's more prone to live a little longer. The conventional big blocks tend to start not living much beyond 3,000 plus horsepower. Yeah. This particular motor actually on Fueltech's hub dyno made right at 2,600 on 50 pounds. Okay. The F3, we don't really spin the guts out of it no more than the 50. It might make 55, but you know, you're pushing at that point, and there again, why tear up a head unit when you don't have to?
Sure, sure.
So I look for longevity and stuff too. You know, there's always that give and take situation, and I'd rather see it live and be just as fast.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and that's a good amount of horsepower for something that's going to be durable too.
So correct.
Excellent. Yes. Derrick, anything else that we're leaving out about the build? Just any other parts that you might want to mention?
Yeah. So rocker arm wise, we typically, on this particular build, we're using a T&D shaft. Okay. It is a steel rocker arm. Yeah. Which, as you can see here, the problem with the aluminum stuff is they tend to get beat with the kind of spring pressures and stuff that we run on the cylinder head. They do get beat up. It knocks the bores out of them. Bearings tend to lose, and they tend to fall apart a lot quicker. Steel stuff obviously is a lot stronger, stays together, stays more uniform, so we don't lose them there like we used to. And they have went to a one-piece intake stand, which has also helped keep some deflection down. Some of the problems with this stuff is it don't have enough bolts in the rocker stand to actually keep deflection out of the valve train, and most customers don't understand that. But when the valve train moves around, don't matter what camshaft you got in it, if your lifter's not following the camshaft and it's all floating and moving around, you ain't got your camshaft in the motor size-wise that you think you got, because it ain't doing its job.
Right.
So then we get into valve springs, and this is an example of one of the packs. It's a triple spring, and it's a really tall installed height, and it can take 950 lift, and it has a whole lot of pressure. We run about 475 on the seat, and I run about 1,400 pounds open. And we put all that on top of that red titanium valve on intake and exhaust. Some guys are running Inconel on exhaust. Years ago before the Inconel come out, we run titaniums, and I just still an old titanium guy. I'll put a titanium on the exhaust side and a turbo application or whatever. I 500 licks until they typically break. So I tell guys at 100 and 150, put valves in it or run it till it breaks, whatever you want to do, right?
Well, very good.
Ring-wise, we use a total seal. It's a gapless top is actually what I use. It's their AP steel top ring. This particular application, we've actually went into something I haven't done yet on most of these builds, but I'm going to a tool steel, it's actually their AP steel second ring. So it's just like the top ring. So if we actually get any kind of heat concentrated down into there, you're not getting into that second ring and trying to lose that tension from heat just getting by the ring. And so hopefully the second ring will stand up a little longer than sometimes they do, and they're less susceptible to the fuel wash and alcohol. Of course, the fuel injections really helped us with that, keeping the bottom end clean and saving the cylinders and oil and all that.
And is it your call in terms of what fuel injection system that your customer's using, or is that something he's?
I've dealt with all of them. Fueltech's obviously the latest and greatest, and I started off with Speed Pro way back in the day, which was John Meany's application after Excel DFI stuff, and then Comp wound up buying them and turned it into Fast, and so we did that, and we did a little Holly when they come out, and we actually had John Meany's big stuff back when it come out. So I've been into kind of a little bit of all of it.
Yeah, definitely.
But definitely the Fueltech, the only problem we've had with any of them has been like their data logging just ain't good. You had to have a race pack, you had to go buy a fuel injection, you had to go buy this. Next thing you know, you got $30,000 worth of electronics on the car. Now you can buy a system that's $15,000, and it's all in one. And the data logging's really good, and it helps because you can pull one screen up and see everything at once, and you're not chasing different screens, different computer monitors, looking for this and that, and trying to figure out where you are in a run. So I do kind of utilize the guys to move towards the Fueltech stuff, just because their customer service too. You pick the phone up and call them. If you don't get them on the phone, they will call you back in a couple of hours and answer your questions. Most of the time you had to wait 3 or 4 or 5 days, or if you didn't know somebody, you'd never get nobody on the phone to talk to you about what your problem might have been.
So. Understandable.
Definitely.
Well, very good.
Helps.
Well, Derrick, just to recap, you got a no prep customer here.
Yes,
it's going to ProCharge this big block Chevy, and you're talking about 2,600 horsepower. Going to be reliable, durable package for them.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Well, Derrick, again, appreciate the time, and thanks for telling us about the shop and about this build. Guys, that does it for this episode of Engine of the Week. Make sure you're checking out Derrick and BB&T Racing. And of course, make sure you're checking out EngineBuilderMag.com for more engine content. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
Thank you.